With me is the economist Dan Altman. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for coming out and enjoying our lovely weather here in the park. If we look at what Mr. Powell said, what Jerome Powell said, what do you make of this idea that he's basically said rates are coming down?
Well, I think he's cracked open the door a little more to cutting rates in September, and he may be open to something like 100 basis points cuts to short-term interest rates over the next, let's say, 6 months until his term is over. But I think he's also said that the neutral rate, which is where his monetary policy is neither too accommodating nor too restrictive, is actually a bit higher than it was in the 2010s. And that means that rates may not come down as much as the markets are expecting overall.
Right, but we'll put neutral to one side. He says the risks appears to be shifting. Higher tariffs are remaking the global trading system. So he admits all of this. And at the same time, he says growth has slowed notably. So as you look at the dual mandate, which bit is he focusing? Because he admits that the dual mandate is now in conflict.
It absolutely is, but he also points out that the U.S. is in a very bizarre situation where the labor supply is actually shrinking. We saw in the first 6 months of this year that the civilian labor force shrank by 400,000 workers, where last year over the same period it grew by 1 million. And that means that the labor force and the labor market can still be in equilibrium even when the payroll numbers are not growing by very much.
You know, he talks right at the beginning. He says the U.S. economy has shown resilience in a context of sweeping changes in economic policy, basically where we still do not know what the long-term effects will be.
Absolutely. This is an unprecedented situation, and I think he's trying to calibrate these two goals where unemployment's not really increasing, but there still is the threat of some inflation.
Do you think that any cuts, the perception will be he's been bullied into them? You would, I suspect, tell me that that's not the case, that actually, you know, that the economic justification is there.
Well, he has repeatedly said that he thinks that the current policy is somewhat restrictive, and he'd like to come down a little bit. But I think he has pointed out with this guidance for the overall policy norms of the Fed that the rates might not come down overall as much as some investors expect.
The tariff inflation shock, not only the Fed chair, but more and more people, we've heard about it from Target, we've heard about it from Walmart, we've heard again and again. The tariff effect is not going to be as great on inflation as we had all perhaps conventionally thought. Do you buy that, or do you still think the jury is out?
Well, the problem with the tariff shock is the following. We could just see a one-time increase in prices as a result in tariffs as those costs gets passed on to consumers. But how long will it take? If consumers see prices inching up month after month, they might start to think, well, you know, maybe inflation is permanently faster. That's the danger for the Fed.
But he specifically said he's not going to have any truck with his 2%. He's going to stick to his 2% after their latest 5-year review.
Absolutely, and he doesn't want inflation expectations to become unanchored. But then you have to ask, if inflation expectations didn't become unanchored when inflation hit 9% under President Biden, then why would they become unanchored now?
I'm very grateful, sir. Thank you for joining us. And what a wonderful day to be out in the park and enjoying it. Thank you, sir, very much indeed.